y'all, it's Gretchen and welcome back to my channel. Alright, today's video is one that I have been asked to do a lot. This one and a variation of another video that I will be making later this year. But I figured I'd finally go ahead and do this one. And as you can tell from the title of today's video, I am going to be going on a tour of all of my piercings. I do have 23 piercings in total. I've only retired 2 in my life, and I'm not really going to talk about one of them. I will briefly touch on another that I have retired, but because it's not currently one that I have, I'm just gonna kind of breeze over that one. But for this, I'm gonna run down every single piercing that I currently have in the order that I got them. I'll briefly touch on the pain level that I felt when I got it done, as well as what healing was like. Now, all of this will be on a scale of 1 to 10, so like 1 will be least painful, 10 will be most painful. None of these will ever feature a 1 or a 10. I haven't experienced anything that was like absolute walk in the park, nothing happened to it, and I haven't experienced anything that was like off the charts. So nothing on this list will be a 1 or a 10 just because of that. There's some that get close to both ends, but I just figured it was time that I do an update to all of my piercings because the last time I did this, it's been a while. I've got a number of piercings since the last time I did this video. Something to keep in mind when I talk about like pain levels, I do have a relatively high pain tolerance, though it has plummeted over the years. More so for tattoos, but I mean, pain tolerance is pain tolerance, so. So on that note, to not draw this out any longer, let's go ahead and get started. Oh, and I will insert a picture, like it'll just be a picture of my ears. You'll be able to see my facial piercings, but I'll insert pictures of my ears and like circle which one I'm talking about at that moment, just so you have a visual. So first we have my right nostril. This was done March 25th, 2016. It was about a 4 out of 10. This was the start of it all. We'll circle back around to my lobes because those were obviously my first ones, but this nostril piercing was the start of my piercing journey, what I consider my piercing journey. So this was my first piercing since getting my lobes done at Claire's, as well as a botched Helix that I got done from there. I didn't really know what to expect, so I went into it thinking it was gonna be awful. I tend to do that with any piercing. I think it's gonna be the worst thing ever, and I'm usually pleasantly surprised when it's not. So this was my first one other than lobes. Healing wise, it was about a 5 out of 10, so a little bit more painful than actually getting it done. And this was primarily because I had a bump on this sucker that would not go away. The only reason why it eventually went away is because I went to a dermatologist and they shot it with cortisone. It was the only way I could get rid of it. I will also say that this one will be coming out soon. I just need to bring myself to take it out. And the main reason is because I really do want high nostril piercings, but it was recommended by piercers that I take out my right nostril because, shocker, my left and my right nostrils don't align. As people like to point out in my videos all the time, I'm aware it's on my face. And so they said, so that everything is symmetrical, it's recommended that I take this one out, heal it, re-pierce it, and then get these done. I could probably get these done and then take this out, but then it looks a little weird, so that's why I haven't done it that way. We'll see. I just need to do it. That was my first one, was my right nostril. And I'm also gonna briefly touch on this next piercing. This is one that I've retired because a lot of issues with it. It was also done the same day, so on March 25th, 2016. And this was my navel piercing. This was about a 2 out of 10. This was a walk in the park to get done. It didn't hurt at all. I didn't even know it got done. And it's mostly because it was done in the wrong spot. It ended up being more of a surface piercing than a navel piercing. So it was practically painless, but at the cost of it not being done correctly. This piercing got rejected. It was severely infected. I had to go to the emergency room in order to have it removed with pliers and Novocaine. It was awful. It was on my birthday. So healing, I really can't put a number on it because it never actually healed. So F's in chat for my navel piercing. Moving on. Next was my left single helix. This was done April 16th, 2016. And it was about a 3 out of 10. Very uneventful to get done. You know, my first helix piercing that I had gotten done correctly and not with a gun at Claire's. It was about a 5 out of 10 to heal, and it's because it developed a bump, and this bump did not disappear for 2 years. When I tell you cartilage piercings are temperamental and stubborn, this is the piercing that I always reference, because this sucker, I would think that the bump would be cleared up, would be going away, and then all of a sudden it's like, I'm back. This was atrocious. And then after like 2 years, it just was like, all right, I'm done with this, and just peaced out. Hasn't been a problem ever since. It was never sore, it never hurt, anything like that, but this bump was annoying and would not go away no matter what. So just based on annoyance, it was a 5 out of 10 to heal. Next is my favorite ear piercing ever, my Conch. Conch. I got this done August 12th, 2016, and this was about a 3 out of 10. This piercing was not nearly as bad as a lot of people had led me to believe. Like I mentioned, I tend to build the pain of a piercing up in my head, thinking it's gonna be the worst thing ever, and then I'm pleasantly surprised when I get it done because I was expecting the worst, and it's usually not that bad. This was no different for the Conch. I built it up in my head. It was absolutely a breeze. It was also a breeze to heal. It was about a 2 out of 10, never developed a bump. It was maybe a slight bit sore, but what piercing isn't sore after it's been done? This was my on a pedestal piercing. Like when I think of the best possible scenario for how a piercing heals, that would be my Conch. That's why I love it so much. It's my favorite. Next was my left tragus, which I got done September 10th, 2016. This was about a 6 out of 10. And the main reason is because I am a member of the Tiny Tragus Club. So piercing a tiny tragus can be a little bit difficult. It takes a lot of finagling to make sure that everything lines up and everything is done correctly. So the 6 out of 10 wasn't so much that the piercing itself hurt, but it was just a lot going on in my ear at the time, trying to get in there with everything to a tiny tragus that didn't really stick out that much. It was a lot. However, this sucker was about an 8 out of 10 to heal because it developed a blood blister and it was painful. It hurt to touch it, clean it, anything like that. Anytime I get close to it, it was almost like it was like radiating pain. It was awful. But once that blood blister actually popped and like the pressure was released, it was perfectly fine. Cleared up. Never developed anything else, never even got crusties after that point, but that buildup was rough. Following that, we have my right double helix. So this is technically 2 piercings. I just got them at the same time, so I call them my double helix. And this was done November 26, 2016. Yes, I got a lot done in 2016. And this was about a 7 out of 10. And the main reason why I put it at a 7 out of 10 is because it was 2 piercings done very close together in a very short period of time. So you did one, and that one was already sore, and then you come back in and irritate it even more by putting another one right next to it. Obviously, it's gonna be a little angry. Healing, though, was about an 8 out of 10. This was one of my more painful ones to heal, even though it was a brief period of time that all of this took place. This thing got so infected one night, and I'll never forget it. I was at a concert with my mom in Hershey, Pennsylvania. It was Shinedown and Five Finger Death Punch. We had gone to the concert. It was perfectly fine. We got back to the hotel and it started to feel a little achy, but I didn't think anything of it. I woke up at 3 in the morning. That sucker was so swollen. It was red. I don't know how the jewelry didn't just like fly off because of how much pressure was building on it. I thought for sure I was gonna have to take my jewelry out right then and there. I thought my ear might fall off if I didn't. It was terrible. It was the worst. But then in 24 hours, completely fine. But in that 24 hours, it was the worst thing I have experienced regarding swelling. It was bad. I will also say one of my double helix piercings, I don't actually remember off the top of my head, I want to say it's the bottom one, is not pierced perfectly straight. It is slightly at an angle, but it did eventually heal. It took a little bit of time because it wasn't pierced at that straight angle. It was actually at like a little bit of an angle. So it did take a little bit longer to heal, but it wasn't terrible. Little thing, if you think a piercing is pierced slightly crooked, it's okay. It could potentially heal. Don't freak out about it. Next up, we have the septum, which I had done March 4th, 2017. This was about an 8 out of 10. Now, I tell people all the time that my septum actually wasn't that painful, except for one part of the process. So I have a very tiny sweet spot. I learned that in the process of getting it done. My piercer for this one was not my piercer that had done all the ones prior. However, this piercer had been an apprentice and was no longer apprentice and was actually ready to do things on their own. And I believe this was their first week doing piercings on their own. It just so happened that the needle got stuck going through my sweet spot. Like it got a little bit of a hiccup going through and got stuck about halfway. So the piercer was a little frazzled and was just with the needle in my nose trying to make it go through. It ended up working out in the end. It was fine, but those few seconds, it wasn't even minutes, it was seconds, but it felt way longer. We're both sitting there in a moment of like, is it gonna go? So that's why I say it was an 8 out of 10, just because it was more of a frantic moment to get done. It wasn't so much that it hurt, though it was not comfortable by any means. Healing wise though, it was a 2 out of 10. Never got a bump, never was infected, never got crusties or anything like that. It was slightly sore on the tip of my nose, but other than that, it was easy breezy. Heck, I even changed it out way too soon after I got it done because I had to have my weight loss surgery. I had to put a retainer in. Don't recommend changing it out as soon as I did, but it worked out in the end. It was super easy to heal. All right, next we have the super fun Daith Doth. I'm pronouncing it both ways because no matter what, someone's gonna tell me I'm saying it wrong. So I had my daith done June 3rd, 2017, and it was about a 6 out of 10 to get done. Much like any of the piercings that are done on the inner part of the ear, it is a little bit more painful just because it is a tight space and it's a little bit more finagling to get it in there correctly. That's the only reason why it was a 6 out of 10. I will also say this is the only piercing where I've ever heard that crunch sound that people talk about, and I'm pretty sure it's because it was like right in there. So I can see why that would be the one where I'd hear it. So although it was a 6 out of 10 pain-wise to get done, this was about a 9 out of 10 to heal. This thing, I feel like a lot of you found me through my videos regarding my daith stuff and its infection and its journey, and it was quite the journey. So if you haven't watched those videos, I highly recommend them. It details everything. It also includes pictures, lots of pictures. This thing got so infected at one point, I wasn't sure what to do, because you're not supposed to take jewelry out if there's an infection, because then the infection can get healed up inside and make a bigger mess. So I was sitting there going like, I don't know what to do. The method that I went to heal this piercing ended up working in the end. However, disclaimer, I don't recommend it ever whatsoever. It's not even like top 5 things to try, but I was desperate. So it was a 9 out of 10. It was probably the worst one to heal. Next we have my left nostril, which was done July 7th, 2017. This was about a 3 out of 10, so very similar to the right nostril. Very uneventful, didn't even bleed. This one bled a slight bit. This one, no blood at all, just pretty good. Pinch, that was it. Healing wise, it was about a 3 out of 10 as well. You know, same as getting it done, 3 out of 10. It did develop a slight bump. Nose piercings are a little bit more prone to developing nose bumps than a lot of other piercings. Not always the case, but they tend to develop them a little bit more often. And that bump went away with some TLC, whereas this one needed to go to a dermatologist to go away. It wasn't the worst thing ever, and just after doing some salt soaks with it, it was fine. Next we have my Rook, which was done March 25th, 2018. This was about a 6 out of 10. Again, it's one of those piercings that's on the inner part of the ear, and it was a 6 out of 10 just because it's a tighter space and causes a little bit more finagling, so a lot more is going on in that area of the ear, make it a little bit more sore. The piercing itself wasn't too bad. It was just a lot of buildup. Healing wise is about a 5 out of 10. It did have a bump on it, very slight bump. It never like bled, it didn't really get crusties. It just had this slight bump to it, and it took forever to go away. So that's why I'm putting it at a 5 out of 10, just because that was annoying. Next we have the mid helix that I have on my left ear. This was done September 15th, 2018. It was about a 4 out of 10. Much like with any helix piercing, it was just a slight pinch, wasn't painful, didn't bleed, anything like that. Healing wise, it was a 2 out of 10. There was no bump, it never bled, only the slightest bit of crusties formed. So it was pretty easy one to heal. Very uneventful. Next we have the first forward helix that I got done on my left ear, which I will be sure in the picture to circle which one was the first one, but it was what will eventually be the middle of my triple forward helix that I don't have yet, but I plan to get. This was done June 27th, 2019. It was about a 3 out of 10. This one I built up in my head to be super painful because everyone was DMing me on Instagram saying like, oh my God, don't get all 3 done at once. Don't even get 2 done at once. This was the worst thing ever. Just get 1 done. So that's what I did. It was nothing. I built that up so much in my head that it was gonna be awful, and it ended up not being. So I will say I am glad that I didn't get all 3 done at the same time, because I cannot imagine how sore my ear would have been. Healing though was about a 6 out of 10. It did swell and it did bleed a little bit. Not all of my piercings end up bleeding at some point, but this one did. It would just like do it at random moments, but it was swollen, didn't develop a bump ever, but it did need that extra bar length because it was a little bit swollen for the first 2 weeks. Next up we have my Philtrum, also Medusa. This was done October 5th, 2019. It was about a 4 out of 10. This one was not bad at all. Even though this is a sensitive area, it was just a slight pinch. I will say, I think the worst part was the fact that for some reason, flipping the lip up and piercing it this way, just being all in the mouth area was a little uncomfortable, but the piercing itself wasn't bad. Healing wise, I'd say it was a 3 out of 10. The big thing was that the bar was annoying. The jewelry, because it was so ridiculously long to account for swelling, which was totally necessary, but on the days where my lip wasn't super swollen, the bar would get stuck on my teeth. It would like pull the lip, pull the teeth, I'd bite down on it, it would hurt. That one was more obnoxious than anything. So this one was not bad to get done. It was not bad to heal. It was just slightly annoying. Next we have my tragus on my right ear, which was done February 6th, 2020, so right before everything shut down. And this one was about a 5 out of 10. So again, tiny tragus club is gonna be a little bit painful just because it is a smaller space to pierce and it's right in the inner part of the ear. So a little bit more finagling to get it done. Healing was about a 3 out of 10. So this one was way easier to heal than the other one that I got done. There was really no bump, there was no irritation, a little bit of crusties, but I think the biggest problem was that I picked too large of a gem for such a tiny tragus and it got caught on everything. So again, it was more of an annoyance than it was an issue with the healing. There's just poor choices. Next up, we have the flat piercing that I got done over here on my right ear. Got this done on Halloween, so October 31st, 2020. This was about a 4 out of 10. This was a very easy one to get done because it's a very open space, slight pinch, much like with any Helix piercing. Healing was about a 5 out of 10, but that's because this sucker had a bump on the backside for God knows how long, and then as with any piercing bump, it just decided one day it didn't want to be there anymore. It was more annoying than anything, didn't really bleed, didn't get crusties, just had this slight bump and it would get sore because the jewelry would hit it. That was about it. Next we then have my Labret or Labret, again like Daith Doth. I'm gonna get corrected, so I'm gonna say both ways. This was done December 30th, 2020, so right at the very end of last year. And this was about a 3 out of 10 to get done. It was actually a little less painful to get done than my Philtrum. It was still a slight pinch, pain-wise, but I think pulling my lip down as opposed to pulling my lip up made it feel less uncomfortable. If that makes any kind of sense? Maybe it doesn't, but in my mind it does. So it wasn't as all up in my mouth uncomfortable as the Philtrum was. But also like with the Philtrum, healing was about a 3 out of 10. And it was because the bar was ridiculously long. I also found that with this one, the bar got caught on my teeth way more often than it did on my Philtrum. So then that was annoying to like constantly bite down on it. And then finally, my most recent piercing, which is the second forward helix that I got done on my left ear. This was done July 5th, 2021, so this past summer. And this was about a 3 out of 10. This is very similar to the first forward helix that I got done. Not nearly as painful as I thought it would be. I built it up in my head more, so then when I got it done, it wouldn't be bad at all. Healing wise, it was actually better than the first one I got done. It was about a 4 out of 10. It didn't swell or bleed nearly as much as the first one I got done. However, there were a lot of crusties in there for this one. And then it had like the slightest bump. Like you could tell it was there, but like you couldn't see it. It was very strange, but it wasn't nearly as bad as the first one, healing wise. I also do have 3 lobe piercings on both ears, and then my first lobe piercings are stretched to 1/2 inch. All 3 were done with piercing guns, so that's why I don't want to like dive into that too much because I don't want to give too much attention to piercing guns. But yes, my second and third ones were done at Eclairs with a piercing gun. My first ones were done at a hair salon in my hometown when I was 8 years old. I remember being scared of the piercing gun because of the noise it made. Still got it done anyway, but I can't tell you what the pain was like for it, and I can't really tell you what the healing was like for it just because I don't remember. So those are my 23 piercings that I currently have. Yes, I plan to get more. I get asked that often as well. Do I plan to get any more ear piercings, any piercings in general? Absolutely I do. I do still have a list that I want to get done to kind of go along with what I currently have. Hopefully the next one I get will be the 3rd forward helix so I can finish up that triple forward helix over there. Let me know in the comments below how many piercings you have. What was the first one you ever got done? Most recent? Your favorite one? Which one was the worst to heal? Which one was the easiest to heal? I mean, Conch is always gonna be my baby. I love my Conch piercing so much. It's the best. But let me know in the comments below. Special thank you to my patrons. You can help support the channel on Patreon while having access to videos early, viewing patron-only content, and more. But that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a big ol' thumbs up. Go on down there, hit that subscribe button, wherever it may be, because I don't know, even though I do. This is just my shtick now. Also hit that notification bell in case you wanna know when I upload. And in case YouTube wants to let you know when I upload, because I would really appreciate it. And until next time, bye all.